Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Kayode. The purpose of this video is to provision Ansible control server in AWS and to use Ansible concept to manage our infrastructures and resources. Before we move on, let's quickly look at the benefit of using Ansible automation control server. Ansible is a configuration management platform that can be utilized, for varieties of tasks such as automating IT workflow. Ansible can also be used to model a complex IT workflow, and it can also be used to orchestrate maybe entire application environment or even your entire production environment as a whole, to manage the update, the patches, the different configuration you might think of doing. It's also like, similar to where we're talking about Terraform using a kind of infrastructure as a code. So it's almost the same, right? But Ansible is one of the tools that is necessary for every DevOps engineer to be able to know how to use and to utilize it to your own best optimization for your own environment. And Ansible, is very less prone to error, right? And then it can be used to provision your server, your virtualized host, or anything that you might think of. It's very sophisticated tools to use in our environment or in our day-to-day activities, as a DevOps engineer that will handle automation and, production. So before we move on, let's quickly look at the prerequisite of, um, this solution that we want to deploy. The first thing we need to have is our AWS account and having permission to create EC2 instance, because of course we want to create a server, right? So and then the second thing we need to that I will do this I'm going to drop a link in my video below, for the command that I use and the script, right? And then the third thing we're going to do is to make sure that we create an Ansible server and see how it to, be able to call the other servers that we have in our account. So I make a diagram here, just to illustrate what we want to do. I mean, the kind of illustration to give us a better idea or view of what we want to try to implement. So Ansible is, of course, going to still be hosted in our AWS account, right? It's going to be one of the EC2 instances, right? So Ansible server would then be used, the Ansible host file, which is known as where the inventory file will be, reside, right? Which is going to manage the other servers in the same AWS account. So the first thing we're going to do is to create Ansible server in AWS account. We can use Terraform to provision that, or we can use the AWS, console side, the CLI to provide this. And then we will install and configure Ansible using either Python pip or apt repo. So we can just download from the repo and then we install from there. And then the next thing we will do is to create an inventory file in Ansible, and then we will see how Ansible concept works, right? Ansible concept are many, right? But we will see the one we can lay hands on in this video. And then subsequently, we will be dealing with other Ansible's concept, which will make us to actually have a very better understanding of how to utilize Ansible to our best, performance. So the next thing we're going to do now is to go to our AWS account. And if you have your own AWS account, you're going to be somewhere like this on your own page, depending on the time that you're watching this video. So at the moment, this is how your AWS instance that landing page will look like. So if you go to my own instance, let's see how many servers I have there. Okay, so I have three server here. I think I have my Kubernetes here, my cluster, and then two worker node. That's very good. So let's just try to because okay, this is what we're gonna do. These three servers are using Ubuntu, so we will try to also provision a kind of a Red Hat server so that we'll be able to have one other operating system that is different from these three, and then we will also launch our Ansible server with it. So let's start with the Ansible server. Let's call it Ansible Let's just call it Ansible. Let me call it Ansible. Okay, or we can let's just leave it as Ansible, and then we'll use Ubuntu. We'll use Ubuntu operating system. Let's take it to T2 medium so that it will contain, or we can just keep it to T2 micro, just to to avoid unnecessary charges. And then I will choose my own key pair. I'm going to choose my own key pair. Of course, you're going to have your own key pair. Then I'm going to keep mine. You can choose, you can leave it on existing security group. But for mine, an existing security group. But you can use the default, your default group. It doesn't really matter. But just make sure that you are open to the internet, or you have SSH, port 22 open in any group that you want to create. But I have like few groups here that I created, which I'm going to choose. I'm going to choose one of my Kubernetes group. So I'm going to choose my Kube Master group. I'll keep this Ansible server in that group. It will be a member of that group. So we have the Ansible server ready. Let's see. Okay, so we have the Ansible server ready. So let's quickly launch another server, a Red Hat. I want us to launch a Red Hat server so that we'll be able to have at least one more operating system that is different from Ubuntu. So let's call this, let's call it our web, um, our web 3-tier app. Let's just call it, and then we'll use a Red Hat for that. And then let's just keep it as it is. I will use my key one, and then I will join it to my existing Kubernetes group, Kubemaster security group, and that's it. And then I will launch this. You will understand the reason why I want to have two different operating systems, because the logins are different. So now I will go to my instance. Let me just quit all the instance that, let me just filter the instance that are already terminated but still showing here, so that we can have a better, understanding. So let me do, I think I've also, which other one that is terminated? Okay, I think this is also terminated. And let's clear this. Okay, cool. So we can have the one that are running. I think this one. Let me just keep them out. So so we have the Ansible. Let me see. I want those ones to be out. Let's take that again. It should be filtered. I want to filter all the terminated one. I'm only trying to filter the ones that, the instances that have already terminated. Okay, so it seems it's not taking that into, it's not executing that. So what I'll do is I've created the Web3 app, Web3 app, and then Ansible, and then I will keep my worker node, 2, and then the Cube Master. I'll keep these three on. So let's start the instance so we can be able to filter those running instance out. So we have the instance running. So let's get into the Ansible. So for the Ansible, I will SSH into Ansible using the public IP address. So we can either use PuTTY, or I can use PuTTY, or let me use mobile Steam. That will be, I'll use mobile Steam. So which I will use this to, SSH into the new instance that I've created, which is the Ansible server. So I'll paste my public IP there, and then because it's Ubuntu, the default username is Ubuntu, and then I will select my private key. I think I use key 1, so I'll select my private key, and then I will log in into my Ansible server. Right. So I'm inside my Ansible server now. Let me try to make sure that I make it more visible. Let's enlarge it. Just zoom. Okay. So let me try to do a bit of zooming. All right. So I'm going to clear my screen. And then, for us to manage Ansible, we need to have an Ansible user account. So to be able to interact and do some of the configuration that we needed. So I'm going to add this a user account. So I'm going to add a user account. No, I want to use the add user so that we'll be able to apply the the password. So I'll do sudo add user Ansible, and then it's going to ask me for password. So I'm going to put my own password. You will put your own password as well. And then I'll keep everything the way it is, and I'll say yes. And then, so that's it. We've created a user uh, inside the Ubuntu operating system that we just launched in the AWS account. So now the next thing we need to do now is to make sure that we join Ansible that we just created to sudo. So to do that, this is the username. I mean the command to join the uh, Ansible to sudo group. So now that we've joined Ansible to sudo group, the next thing we want to do is to set the host name, right? So we'll just do sudo host name ctl sudo host name ctl set host name. Let's just call it Ansible. Set host name. Let's just call it Ansible, right? So now the host name has been set. So then we can just change the user to, let's just do sudo user switch, and then to Ansible that we've created. So this is, we're now logging now as the Ansible. So the next thing we need to do now is to install Ansible. Like I said, we can use Python pip to install Ansible, and we can also install Ansible from the repo. So let's just install from the repository, and then the command to do that is this. So we can install Ansible with it. Then it's a press enter to continue. Just press enter. So let's see if it's going to download fast. If it download fast, it's cool. We don't need to pause the video. But if it takes too much of time, I will just pause the video to avoid taking. Oh, fine. So if we're done with this, so the next thing we need to do now is to install Ansible, because the repo has already finished and downloading that. So we'll do sudo apt install Ansible. So just to -y, let me clear my screen so you'll be able to see well. Okay, so we'll do sudo apt install Ansible. Then we just, we don't want to let it keep asking us for questions. So this will now install our Ansible, and I'll pause the video because it's going to take a little bit of time. So just to avoid the video taking taking longer than expected. So we're just going to pause it. Okay, so the Ansible installation has been completed. So the next thing we want to do is so before we proceed, the Ansible directory is found in, let me just say cat, it's found in etc Ansible. So this is where the directory is found. So now let's see, we will need to make sure that the Ansible user is actually having access, to this Ansible. Let me just do it this way and see. Okay, let me do etc. I'm just going to do, let's do then etc Ansible, etc Ansible. All right. So now this is where the Ansible files, even Ansible config file is in this place, right? So now we will need to make sure that the Ansible user is having the access, because at the moment the user that is the root user that have access to this host file, and then we need this host file, we need this Ansible config file and the roles and all of that. So we need to make sure that we allowed Ansible, to have access, to these files. So to do that, we need to make sure that we change and give Ansible, the permission to, recursively to be able to, use the file as we need it. So to do that, we're going to do sudo shown and then recurse Ansible, then we'll do inside the etc Ansible. So this will allow us, so now we can use the same command to see, and now we can see that Ansible is now, in control of all of this file. So now the next thing we need to do now is to go through the, let's go, the other thing we need to do, because this is the host file, and this host file is where this is the default host file where the inventory file will also reside, right? And then we also have the Ansible config file and then the rows, right? So now the next thing we need to do before we go into this host file and begin to, implement or write our inventory, let's quickly go through the Ansible concept, so we'll be able to have understanding of Ansible concept, and then see how we can touch part of the Ansible concept in this video, and see how we can utilize it to, to call or to make any, changes in our host machines. Other servers that we have in the AWS account. Okay, so let's use Visual Studio to as our editing, just to give us the chance, to write on the screen. So let me just take in any folder I can see on the desktop, and then I can just add this, and I will just bring this to the side, and then we can just use, let's run a terminal and call, let me do bash, let me take it to bash, and then let me call it training. I think I have training there before. Let me just say training1.sh. Okay, so I will just say okay. Oh, sorry. So I'm just, I want to create a file. So I'll just say training1.sh. Okay, so I want to just touch the file. So training1, okay. So let's look at Ansible. We'll look at Ansible concept. So we just quickly dive into Ansible concept. So Ansible concept are just like the modules, the different concepts in Ansible that we can use, to optimize our workflow, in terms of interacting with our host machines, in our cloud environment. So the number one out of the Ansible concept is called Ansible command. So this is the command that is actually embedded in Ansible. So the second one is Ansible modules. So Ansible modules are actually, we can say Ansible modules are Python script that can be invoked in playbook. So let me just put that Ansible are Python. Ansible modules are Python, a Python script, that can be invoked, that can be invoked in playbook. So majorly, most times, by the time you actually outgrown, from the command prompt level, most of the time you will be using Ansible playbooks, to continue to optimize, your host machine, and also to provision as much as you may need, right? So the modules, right? So if we look at, Ansible modules, what are the modules? The modules are the command that you can actually use, right? Like ping, you can ping, right? You can use your shell command, right? With it, you can use other command, right? So, and also you can use application packages, right? Like if you can, if you in Ubuntu, right, we do apt install, right? So that is also used in Ansible modules, and also for Redder we use yum, right? It's which is different from apt, right? To also install, copy, and all of that. So these are what the modules will allow us to do, right? So the next thing that we will also touch is playbook itself. So the playbook is actually as simple as the configuration script. It's a file, right? It's a file that actually written in YAML. It contains the plays and the tags, right? So we can say that playbook, it's a configuration is a configuration script, written in YAML file, right? Written in YAML file, and then it contains plays and tags. So these are reusable files that we can optimize or update, to make sure that we use it to interact or provision or manage our resources in AWS or any cloud environment, right? That we have our resources. So that is what the playbooks actually does. It will also, like, you can also use the particular playbooks to target the tags, right, that you wanted to execute in your host, right? So it can also work like that. So another thing, part, another concept, another concept in Ansible concept is role, right? So, and we also have Ansible, I think Ansible Galaxy, right? We have Ansible Galaxy, and then we also have the inventory, right? We also have the inventory, which is like, the static, and then it's also in dynamic, right? So this is how we can be able to use Ansible, concept. These are the concepts that we can use in Ansible, to be able to manage our infrastructures and resources. So let's quickly go through the Ansible, the first one, which will say the Ansible command. So the Ansible command can actually, let's say for example, we can use Ansible command, to actually ping. When you ping, you want to know maybe your server is alive or not, right? That's the purpose of pinging, right? So we can do something like Ansible host, you know, Ansible host. The host is your machine, right? Then modules is the hyphen M is the module, right? And then you have the A, which is the argument, right? So let me just put it this way. So these are the way we can use Ansible command, right? Which the M is actually for the module, right? The modules, and then minus hyphen A, right? Let me just put hyphen A equals to our argument, right? So, and then what are the hosts that we're talking in this place? Because we said Ansible host. The hosts are the machines, right? So the host can either be, your maybe Kubernetes server, right? It might be your web server. It might be it might also be your local, right? Local host. And then it might also maybe be any of the server that is actually managing other resources for you, maybe like your jump, or maybe like your anything that you can talk of, maybe Jenkins, right? Maybe your Jenkins, right? Or maybe your Tomcat. So those are the hosts, right, that you can use. So now we need to make sure that we have inventory that we will be able to use, to communicate with our host, right? So the host needed to be, we need to create inventory for the host, which will contain the host informations, right? Then that the Ansible control server will be using to communicate and modify as as much as we want to, enhance or utilize the Ansible's inventory. So now this is the way we can write that. But before we go into that, let's quickly let's do something. Let's get into our EC2 instance first. Let's see if that will still work. Let me see. Oh, okay, it has gone. I know that will happen. It has timeout. So I'll copy the public IP again for the Ansible, and then I will go back to my mobile Steam, and then I will go to season, I'll go to SSH, I'll put my, IP there, and then I'll Ubuntu, and then I'll go into here and, use my key. Okay, so let me bring it visible, make it more visible. Okay, so all right, so now let me clear my screen. So we know that let's say we want to check the let me just do cat the Ansible, the host is in the Ansible, in the etc, right? Etc Ansible slash host, right? So this is where we have the default host file is here, and this is where we have to put in um uh, our inventory file by the time we create our inventory file. So this is where that will be, right? So now the next thing we need to do now is to see how we will write our inventory files, right? So let's still use the Visual Studio. So now we need to write Ansible, let me call it Ansible inventory file, right? Or let me just put it auto write. I'll just say auto write Ansible inventory file. So I'm going to enlarge this a little bit. Or can that happen? Let me see if I can enlarge the screen. Okay, it's not possible. I think it's a bit visual. It's visual. It's visible. Okay, so now this is how to write. Let's say we have, let me quickly show you. We have, for example, we have Kubernetes cluster here. So this Kubernetes cluster is called the kube master, right? And then which one do you have again? We have the Web3 app. Okay, so now I'll go back to my this. So we'll call this kube master. So we have kube master. We have kube master there. We have web, I think Web3 app. That is tier 3, right? I think we also have worker node 01, and then we have worker node 02. Let's confirm that again. Okay, so we have worker node 01 and 2, and then we have the kube master, and then we have the Web3 app, right? Tier 3 app. So now that's the host that we have here. So let's assume this is our host, right? So the next thing we want to do is to make sure, okay, let's get the format out first, then we'll fill out the format. So now let me push this a little bit. Now this is our kube master, right? So the idea to the way to write the inventory file, is to make sure that we have the host, right? Then we have the host up. We can have the host up. Then we'll have the host IP, that's the host IP address, and then we will have the host user, right? So we'll have the Ansible user, right, which is going to be our host user. So we call this host user, right? And then we will have our SSH private key, SSH private key. All right. So now to write this, we have our host here, which is this host. So we have our IP. Let me make sure host IP is host private IP, host private IP, right? So now we will get the host private IP from the EC2 instance. So this is a kube master, and this is a private IP. So we'll copy the private IP, and then we'll come back here, and then we'll come here and paste the IP, right? So the next thing we want to do now is to then give the host user, right? To give that host user, we'll do Ansible underscore user equals to. So now, which username that we use to log in into the Cube master, right? So it's the Kubernetes is actually residing in the Ubuntu operating system, and the default of Ubuntu operating system is Ubuntu. So that EC2 instance still remain as is still using the default the user. So the next thing we want to do now is to you know put in our private key, right? So, and that is Ansible underscore SSH underscore private key, right? Which is our key pair underscore file, right? Equals to, so that file actually reside in temp, then we will create the key in it. So it's going to be the key, our key.pem, right? Which is the key. Remember when we were logging into our system, we will include our key pair, right? So this will be our key pair, but this key pair is going to reside in this temp, right? So we need to make sure that we create our key in this place. So that's how the whole thing will look. So let's configure everything now. Let's go to the Web3 and then copy that. So the Web3, so we're going to go out of this. We go to the Web3 app, tier 3 app, and then we copy the private key, right? So we'll copy the private key. We will come to our training file, and then we'll paste it, and then let's just copy everything like this. So we'll copy everything like this, we will paste it, and then remember when we were creating this app 3, I think the web app 3 is using Red Hat, right? So that we can have different. So Red Hat is EC2 minus user. That's the default uh, username to get into Red Hat, right? So now worker node. For the worker node, we just need to. That's Ubuntu. For Kubernetes is Ubuntu. So we will go and then we will do the worker node 1, and then we'll copy the private IP. Then we'll take it down there. We'll copy the private IP we put, and then because it's using Ubuntu, this will remain the same. So we'll put it this way. So I'm just trying to write a simple, command uh, uh, Ansible concept, right? To create inventory file. So now we will copy the worker node 2 private IP, and then I will go to my training file. Then I will put that here, and then I will copy everything because it's Ubuntu. So I'll copy, and then I'll put. Now we have done our information regarding all the hosts, right? The Cube Master, the Web3, the Cube 1, the Cube Node 2. So now the next thing we need to do now is to make sure that we get our key in our temp file, right? Like I said, the key is in temp file. The key is in the temp file it's in the temp file, of our Ansible. So we need to make sure that we get into that. So what we're going to do now is to go into our machine, right? And we can cut. Oh man, we've lost that. So I need to log in again. So let me quickly go and I will go grab the Ansible public key, and then I'll come here and I'll go to season. It's a new season. I'll put that, and then come here and say Ubuntu, and then come here. I'll put the private key. All right. Okay, so now I'll change pseudo. Let me make the screen very, visible. All right, so let me clear the screen. I'm going to clear the screen, and I'll say, I'm going to change to that. Let me change to Ansible, right? So we are in Ansible now. Let me just cut, just to see. Um, Let me see. Sudo. Uh, Okay, so I'm going to, I think is, let me check the, let me cut, I'm going to cut, Ansible. Okay, okay, so, okay, cool. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to VI, and then I'm going to, because I wanted to, let me do it this way. I want to copy the key file. Let me go to my key file, right? I'll open my key file. Let me just open and say just one. So this is my key file. This is my key file here, right? So I will just, this key file, you will also have your own, right? So you will copy this key file, just copy this key file, and then we will put the key file in our, it's going to reside in this place. Let me ls, let me just ls the temp. Let me ls the temp. Okay, yeah. So this is where our private key is going to reside, right? So inside this temp. So what we need to do now is let's just veer into the temp, and then we'll call our key. I'll call my key key1.pem, right? This is the key that we generated from the EC2 instance when we were creating our instance, right? So I will open this, then I will press I, then I will paste that, the private key that we copied, then I will save it. I will write and queue. Then if I go again and I say ls temp, so we have our key one temp, right? So this is the same way you have to do your own, right? You have to make sure you copy your private key and then you create the key name and put it here. So this key name that we've created is what we will then have in our inventory, right? So now I created my own as key one. So I'm going to make sure I have all my keys as one, right? So now this is the way we've created this simple file. Now the host file itself, let's go look at the host file, right? Which is the under the etc Ansible host, right? So let's go to our mobile esteem, and then let us say, let us just say ls and then say etc Ansible hosts, right? This is the default Ansible file is written here. I mean, is here, right? So what we want to do now is to make sure that we copy this file that we've created, just the same way you will have created your own inventory file. Then we will copy it, and then we'll go back to our uh, uh, Ansible server, right? And then we want to make sure that we put our file here, right? We want to put it in the default host file, right? So now the next thing we will do, let's not write too much of command, then we will just do vi, let's just vi, right, into this particular host file. And then now we are there, so we can just press I, and then come down, and then let's paste it, right? So let's escape, and then right and cute. So with that, so that file now is already there. So if we go ahead now, and then we say ls. So if you say ls, then it's there. So let's just do add. Let's tail it, right? Let's tail it so to be able to see our files. So let's tail etc Ansible hosts, right? So now this is our Ansible, this is our Ansible's uh, inventory that we've created, right? So now the next thing we want to do now is let's see if we can ping one of these. Remember when we were talking about the command, the ad hoc command, right? When we were talking about the command, well, okay, let me go back to our training file. We're talking about the command. So this is ad hoc command, right? So when we're talking about the ad hoc command, we talk about the ping, right? We can use, then we can use shell and all of that. So let's try to ping a host, right? You can see Ansible host modules, my hyphen m, right? And then the argument, right? So let's try to do that here and see if our Ansible file can then communicate with this our Kubernetes cluster by calling it, right? We want to ping. The function of the ping is to let us see if that host machine is alive or not, right? So we'll use the same command that we have there, the Ansible host, right? We're going to do Ansible host, which is the host name is the cube master, right? Which is this one. We want to ping this. And then we will do hyphen the modules, and then let's just ping, right? And see. All right. So now it's saying invalid character were not found, blah blah blah. Then okay, so our this is our file, right? The key, right? That we give. But now it's asking us saying, are you sure you want to continue connecting? Yes or no, right? So now there is a way we want to make sure that as a DevOps engineer, maybe we have other things that we want to do, and then we have automate our tasks, right? We have our playbook ready, and we don't want situation where we don't want situation where we will need to be saying yes or no to this, right? So we need to find a way to make sure that we eliminate these questions, and then being able to pass our command or execute any of the tasks without needing any interaction, right? So let's see how we will do that. Let me just say no to this, and then let's see how. Let's go inside the Ansible config file, right? So we can we can see how we can change that question and then eliminate that without us needing to, to press yes or no. So let's do sudo, or cat the file. Let's say cat etc Ansible, and then it's Ansible dot cfg. Remember the file that we saw the other time, right? So this is the file. So this is a file now. We will, it says, to generate an example of a config file, a disable with all default setting and all of that. So we want to make changes to this so that this question of yes or no will not come where we want to do execute a task, right? And then it's saying, because it's not here, we will go look for this example over the internet. Let's copy this. Let's copy the file where we will need to do the changes, right? Is not here. So we will need to make sure that we get this example of config file. So let's go and copy the config file from the internet. So let me just paste it here and let's see. Okay. So let me just copy this. I'm gonna copy it. I want to see the config file. Okay, so module set local to false, true. Let me see. Okay. Uh, okay, I might need to just copy everything and search for it. So this is the file that Ansible has provided. So I will copy. I'm going to copy the file, right? So I will go through the. I'll go back to our Ansible server, right? So let me go back to the Ansible server. And then we need to search for that host key, the host key checking. So what we'll do now is let us VI into this. Let's VI into it. I'm just going to clear this screen. I think that's what I'm going to do. I'll clear it so we'll be able to see clearly. So we'll VI into this Ansible config file. And then we'll paste what we get from the Ansible. So let us see. So this is the, we can just come here. Let me just come here. Or I can even paste it up there. Right? Not a problem. So let me do I. So we'll paste the file. I can paste it down too. So I'm going to paste the file here. Right. So, and then I will search for, I'm going to search for the host key. So I'm going to search for the host. I think that will be host underscore key. So let me see. The host underscore key. I think it's in line. Okay. So I'm going to search for the host underscore key. Let me go up. That file need to be set to false. Host underscore key. I'm trying to see. Okay, cool. This is the file we're looking for. So this host underscore key, right? If it's set to true, then it will ask for yes or no, right? So this file now, I will set it to, it's on false now, right? So I'm going to set it to true, right? So I'll set it to true. Look for keys, right? So now if I escape this and then I write and quit, right? So let me ping again. I'll ping, right? So you see, it's giving us the yes or no question so that for us to answer. So I'm going to say no, right? So now I will go back into this config file. Then this is the true. Let me put high. And then, so we'll change this to false, right? And then we'll escape. And then we will write and quit, right? So we'll ping again. Right, no, it shouldn't ask us for this. Are you sure you want to continue? No, it shouldn't ask us for this question. Let me let's see again. The purpose of having to put that config file is for us to make sure that we change. We don't want this question to continue coming. So that's the purpose of that. So we will change it to, let me see. So I will apply. This is what I will apply. I see if that will make a change. So we're looking for the host key with I, the host key, host key, host underscore key, host underscore key. I think I was there before. Okay, private key. No, we're looking for host. Could have said, but the command is not going there. Okay, host underscore key. Underscore key. Under the key, look for key, host underscore key, host underscore key, auto add. Okay, okay, I think that was a wrong host. That was that the one we changed wasn't it. So that was a look. Then we need the host underscore key add. No, we need the host underscore key checking. Host underscore key checking. Host underscore key. Host auto. Host underscore key. We need to search for that. That is a key that we needed to change. Host. Okay, so let's try to check and see if this will work, but this is still not the it's not the key. We're looking for the host key checking. It should be host key underscore checking. Let me set this to true. It should be false, but let's just escape and let's try it now. Let's try to ping. No, this is not what we want. We still need to check and see for host key checking. Okay, I found the file. So the file is this one. Host key checking. So it's this one. So we'll take this and keep it as false. So this will be as false. So if we keep this as true, let's keep it as true and say save and run this. If we ping one of our server, it will ask the question, right? So we'll go back there and then we'll change this file to false. So now I will escape and then I'll write great. So now let's try to ping again. You can see. So now that is how to eliminate that question that is going to be asking you. It's very, very challenging to look for that file because the scripts are really many. So it took me time to really search one by one because my searching stuff is not working. So this allows you to make sure that you don't let this question continue to persist when you want to ping. So now we're having an error and saying unreachable because our private key. I was supposed to make the private key protected, but I just leave it this way. I purposely leave it so that we'll be able to see how we'll correct this error when we are doing our own. I mean, when you are doing your own. If I don't allow it to be like this, you won't understand what I do if I try to rectify it at the beginning. So now we need to make sure that our key, remember we copied our key and then we paste it in the temp file, right? So now we will need to go back to that key and make sure that we make that key. If you can remember the key, where we keep the key, right? We have the key in the, if you say ls temp, right? If you do ls temp, remember we have the key here. So let's just make sure that we add the key. The key is that we just make sure that we'll protect the key, right, by making it read only, right? So let me clear my screen. I want to clear my screen. So we want to make that key, to be read only. I don't know how visible this will be, but let me just make sure I zoom it more. All right. Okay, so we have our key in the, we have it in the temp. We have the key in the temp. So the next thing we want to do is to make sure that we protect the key, using show mode, the show mode 400, right? Will take us, will make it read only. So the key is key 1.pem, right? So this will make our key to be read only, right? Then, so now we will try to ping the server again. Let's try to ping the server. So we ping in the cube master, right? So now you can see. Do you see now that it's successful? We can be able to ping our server. Let's try to also do for the same thing for the host, local host, right? The local host, which is the main machine, right? So if you do local host, right, you can see that it's successful. And then it didn't bring the key issue again because we've already protect our key, right? Let's try to ping almost all the hosts that we have in our inventory. Remember, in our inventory, I think we have about 4, right? We have about 4 servers, right, in our inventory. So let's just try to make sure. Let's use the add command for all, right? And then the module, right? And then we ping, right? Remember. So now this will give. Do you see? It's pinging all our servers, right? This ping all the servers that we put in our Ansible's inventory file, right? So this is successful. They're all successful, right? The same way we ping the host, right? So let me tell again. I want to see all the file that we, I mean the host that we have in our uh, in our in our uh, inventory file, right? So let me do Ansible the host. Sorry, I have to put S, right? So now let me try to see. Let me see the resources in this worker node, right? We can use a command also to see the free space or resources, right? So we can do Ansible. We can use a command called Ansible, and let me try the one for worker node. Worker node. Did I get the spelling right? Worker node 01 argument, and then we can say the free. So let's see and say free. So module, right? Free dash m. So we want to see. Do you see? We want to see the total memory, usage, use, and then the free. We can also do the same thing for our cube master, right? To see the space, let me do cube master. I think cube master it is cube master, right? Okay, so let's see you can see the free space of memory, right? You can see the total use, right? You can see the total use for the Kubernetes, right? And then the free, right? So these are the way we can use Ansible concept, and this particular one we're working on now is just the Ansible add command. We are not using the playbook yet. We are just using the command to call our machines to see the free space, and it can work too, right? We can even use, because we have Kubernetes, right? We can use the, Kubernetes where the command is kubectl, right? Let's see how we can use Ansible, to also do the same thing that we can do in our Kubernetes cluster, right? Which is the control plane, right? To get the node, to see how the control plane is, trying to call the node to see the function. So let's try to use Ansible to do the same thing that we can do if we are in our own cube master, right? On our own cluster, right? So we'll do cube master. So Ansible host. So the host is cube master, right? It's cube master. Then we put an argument, right? And then we will use the same command that we used to use if we are in the cube the cluster or cube master, whatever we call it, yeah. kubectl let's say get kubectl get nodes, right? So we want to see our nodes, right, in the Kubernetes cluster, right? Now look at it. So I have my Kubernetes cluster. Remember we are using this Ansible, right? So let me just clear my screen, right? So we'll be able to see properly, right? Let me take back this thing. Remember we in our EC2 instance, right? I have, if you check our EC2 instance, at the beginning we have this cube master, right? We have this cube master. we have this worker node 1 and we have this worker node 2, right? So these are this is where my Kubernetes reside, right? So now instead of me to be in this kube master, right, or probably SSH into my kube master, remember our aim, right? Our aim was if you have multiple server, like 50 DB server, 60 web server, right? We don't want to go into each of these hosts to manage, right? We want to make sure that we use a particular concept, to automate, and to, work on our resources and our infrastructure, right? So that's the purpose of this Ansible. You can see the function, you can see the benefit of using Ansible now, even without still using the core, like using the playbook, right? So let's go back to our mobile esteem, right? So if I'm in my cluster, right, I will use something like kubectl, right, to get the node or the pod, right? So, but now I'm using the Ansible, to do all the command, and then I'm getting my result, which is that kube master worker node 1, worker node 2, right? The same way we can do kubectl get, in our cluster, if we want to work on cluster, we can do kubectl get pod, right? We want to see the pod that is working, right? So let me just do kubectl get pod, right? So I will just say kubectl get pod, right? So we want to see the pod that are running, right, in our distance. So we don't have any resources that is found in that namespace because I didn't create a namespace in that. But we could be able to see how our cluster can also be managed. So every command that we can make in our cluster or for our Kubernetes, right, we can also use Ansible to do the same, which is very, very interesting. We can also use, we can also use the file command, the file management in Ansible. We can use the deployment management, we can use service management, we can use package management. For example, let's say we want to install, right? We can use something like Ansible, right? We can do something like Ansible host, sorry, let me just do it on local host, Ansible local host, right? In modules, then apt, right? That's the module we want to use, the application packages, right? Let's say we want to install, then we put the argument, right? So what do we want to do? Let's say we want to install Nano, right? I don't think if there's Nano in it. Of course, it's fresh. There's no Nano in it. Let's say we want to install Nano, right? We say name Nano, right? The state, right? We want to make it, present, right? Something like that, or latest, right? Then we want to give it the escalation, and then we do. And look at this should be able to, you can see the present of it. Then if I do like this and I want to put latest, right, I can just do state and then I will change it to latest, right, just to see, right? So we have the latest. So this is the way we can be able to use Ansible in different ways, right? We can also use it to check the command for what do you call it, Docker, right? We can also use those Docker command and then use it to manage our resources in our cloud account, right? So there are many things we can do in this. We can also use the doc, but if you want to get more, dive in more usage, to know more about the functionalities, you can also go and check the documentation for Ansible. It has a lot of information there for you to, to read and be able to use it to do whatever you want to do as a DevOps engineer. I hope you enjoyed this video. And then because the video is getting really long, it's about an hour now, I want to make sure that I break it into pieces to make sure that we'll be able to cover every concept in Ansible. So our next video will be we'll be diving properly into playbook, right, to use it to automate tasks, right? Okay, right. Thank you for watching this video, and please like, share, and then you can drop a comment below if you need any assistance. I'll be more than happy to to do it together with you. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of your day.